Well, welcome back to Radio Entrepreneurs. All our friends who have been tuning in for the last few months. We continue to stream more stories than ever before. My name again is Jeffrey Davis. I'm host of Radio Entrepreneurs. Also, CEO, founder of MAGE LLC, management consulting firm for organizations. Just to remind all of you, with all of our listenership, that Radio Entrepreneurs can be heard on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, and Stitcher. So that's quite a network that we put together, especially for our next guest, a founding member of Radio Entrepreneurs, Mark Furman, director and partner at Tarlow, Hart Rodgers. Hello, Mark.
Jeffrey, great to see you this morning.
You too, Mark, as one-dimensional as you are. You look slimmer in one dimension.
Thank you.
So there is really one big hot topic that seems to be going on lately in your world, and I'm sure you're going to want to cover it today. The Supreme Court and how it can be affecting all of us, correct?
Yes. We have the nomination of Judge Barrett that's before the Senate, and the expectation is that she'll become the next Supreme Court justice, basically along party line votes. And it's very controversial because of the timing. We're literally in the middle of an election where in many states people have already been voting. They're voting today, they'll be voting tomorrow. So this is the closest Supreme Court hearings in the history of our country in relationship to an election. So this is on the heels of what happened in 2016 when Justice Scalia passed away, and the Senate refused to give a hearing to President Obama's nominee, Merrick Garland. So the political winds are pretty hot right now, and but the expectation is that she'll become the next Supreme Court justice just in time for a hearing on the constitutionality of the Affordable Care Act, which is scheduled in early November, and the real possibility of election fights similar to 2000, but perhaps on steroids, depending on how close the election is. We have so I'm hoping that there isn't a repeat of 2000 where one justice on the Supreme Court decides whether or not a recount would continue in Florida, which would in effect decide the presidential election.
Well, I think that your point about Florida is well taken. But the system is going to play out the way it's going to play out, and there's going to be a lot of upset people. I think either way, trying to be diplomatic here, and it just doesn't seem like we're going to stop. We're going to calm down. It's like the nation is heated, and it seems to be primed to heat up even more.
I think so. Supreme Court justices certainly have not always voted in cases the way presidents who appoint them have expected. The classic example is Earl Warren, who was appointed by President Eisenhower, and he became the Chief Justice during a time where the United States Supreme Court was viewed by conservatives as going too far in terms of finding constitutional rights. So, the basic argument along political lines is how should Supreme Court justices decide cases? Justice Scalia, his view, and I think the view of the Federalist Society, which is a group of conservative-minded judges, is you look at the Constitution, the public meaning of the Constitution at the time it was enacted back in the late 18th century, and you interpret it that way. The competing view is, I'll call it the Judge Brennan view, which is that society changes and what's acceptable conduct in the 18th century is very different than in the 21st century, and the Constitution has to evolve so that it complies with standards of decency as they evolve over time. The conservative response is there's a legislature, the Congress, that gets to make the laws. They're in the legislatures, and the president are the voice of the people, and that when the judges create rights, they usurp the role of the legislature to make the laws and the president to implement the laws. So, I mean, we've been debating this for years and years and years, but at its core, it's just sort of power politics. That's what happened in 2016, and that's what's happening now. So, so the charge of the Republicans and Democrats want to pack the court, and the Democrats view the Republicans as having packed the court by denying Obama a election year appointment and insisting on the confirmation of Judge Barrett during an election.
Well, you know, I've tried to listen to both sides. I have my own personal point of view, and I'll stay out of this argument. But in, you know, for the Obama appointee, the Republicans controlled the Senate, and over Trump, they controlled the Senate. So doesn't that sort of dictate, really, in reality, forgetting politics, the way it's going to play out? The Senate has had the veto power last time, and it has the power to push it through this time, and that's within our legal system, correct?
Yes, they have the power. They had the power to block, and they had the power to go forward now. I mean, we're in a very polarized time. You know, I mean, there is historical precedence for presidents making appointments, and also for letting the people's will to decide. But you know, there are charges of hypocrisy because, for example, Lindsey Graham swore up and down that if it was the last term of Trump presidency, he would not support a nominee being confirmed, but he's now the chief cheerleader for this appointment, and the pace of this appointment is extraordinary, unprecedented, really, in our history.
I noticed in the openings, they said this is going to happen. You know, the Republicans will vote for her and the Democrats will vote against her. That was in the opening speech. And he said, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Right. And then part of the fight is over how important precedent is. So, for example, Roe versus Wade has been the law since the 70s, and there's a question of whether this means there would be a majority to support overturning Roe v. Wade. You know, Justice Roberts has, who's conservative, has been less willing to overrule precedent than, for example, Justice Thomas. So I don't know. The Supreme Court remains unpredictable, and I don't want to lose sight of the fact there are many cases that are not left versus right cases on the Supreme Court. You know, this is a business show, and you know, business cases frequently are not decided by 5-4 majorities, and
Well,
they're frequently not decided along conservative versus liberal lines.
so I don't know if I can change the topic in our short amount of time left, but you know, I think, you know, from my perspective, I'm not an attorney like you. I don't even pretend to be like you in that way. But, you know, isn't the Supreme Court by design, once you're there, totally independent? You can't remove them. They are there. They're able to look at stuff on its pure intellectual value within the law. And that's why you're saying they don't always vote according to party lines, because they're really freed up with no influence. And it is possible that some of these things could go in directions that people don't expect, that they won't be voted on party lines.
That's true. That's absolutely the case. And there's also the, you know, people evolve based upon their experiences and who they're in contact with. I mean, I take the example of Justice Ginsburg. There's a lot of discussion about her personal friendship with Justice Scalia, even though they were very different. But she always referred to Justice Rehnquist, who was the Chief Justice, as her chief. And he was a very conservative judge who, over a period of time, she won over on some important discrimination rulings. So, you know, as people are exposed to other points of view, people can modify their views. I'd say Justice Roberts, you know, as the chief, has one eye on the case and the other eye on the reputation of the court. And so, although he's conservative, I think he's departed from the conservative wing on some cases. Not most, but a handful.
Well, I guess the good part about Justice Ginsburg was that she had such great intellectual depth back down, you know, stepping away from politics again, and that she could sway people through her intellectual arguments. And I think that's also been an argument for a long time now that I can remember, that not all the justices have the depth intellectually that she possesses, which really becomes an issue for the court moving forward.
But they also, you know, it's a small group of 9, unless more the rules change. But so, you know, there's a book out about Justice Scalia now, and the foreword is written by Justice Kagan, who is also polar opposite of Justice Scalia in terms of judicial rulings. So there's a certain camaraderie that exists in the Supreme Court that I think, you know, it's less publicly politicized, and because it's more intimate, it's, I think, less polarized. And some of these relationships would be a good example, you know, and so we'll see.
Well, everybody, this is Mark Furman, who has been speaking, attorney, partner at Tarlow, Hart Rodgers, clearly trying to walk a diplomatic road into our future and give you a perspective. I think what you're encouraging us all to do, Mark, is to be informed and understand what we have with our leadership and in the future. If somebody's looking for you and help to guide them and their businesses in the future, how would they find you at Tarlow Breed?
I can be reached at mfurman, Furman, at tbhr-law.com, or at 617-218-2025.
Well, thank you very much. Again, Mark Furman, Tarlow Breed, Hart Rodgers. My name is Jeffrey Davis. We're going to take a break. We'll be back with more stories very quickly.